Okay, good morning. You can see me? Okay. We are on Hilchos Megillah, Taf Reish Sadi Hey. Today we're going to start from Gimel. Just a quick thing, I realized we just did Matanas of Yonim and we missed a couple of details. We didn't discuss who's Chayav. So yes, men and women are Chayav. That's for sure. Once you're Bar Mitzvah. Who else? What about someone who's Somech al Shulchan Avihim? Someone who, boy, girl, yeshiva bacher, whatever, they have no parnasa whatsoever. So that's a machlokus. And, okay, let's just get that out there. And what's the bare minimum to give? So most poskim, I believe it's B'Shem the Ritva, points out that the bare minimum would be, here it is. The bare minimum would be a shave pruta. Okay, so that's very little, obviously, but many point out that you should give. There's different amounts that many poskim say one is supposed to give. Again, the bare minimum mikar din shave pruta, according to the vast majority. However, different numbers are given. Such as one is, it should be, the minimum is the actual bread for a seuda, which we normally consider 3 beitzim is the minimum, that volume, or the value. Some say it's supposed to be the amount of a small amount of a suda, like a minimum suda, that's how much you should give. So just, okay, and everyone says it needs to be obviously food or money that you can, or money. But that's, oh, am I confused?
Not like kalim or
so that's a big question if you can use other things besides money or food. For sure to be yotzei, it must be money or food. Otherwise, it's some say you're not yotzei. And what else did I want to point out? I did mention a check the other day, so I'll just point out Mordechai Eliyahu and others, they do question if the check cannot be used that day. Let's say you need to put it in the bank and the bank's closed and you can't draw any cash out of it, then he says you're not yotzei. But you still can if it's usable. Like if you can go to the makolet or the market and use it or give it to someone else to pay someone, that you sign it and they'll take it. So then then he says that for sure works. So it's usable as money. But otherwise, and obviously if you give a check and you have no money in your bank account, that's obviously not going to help you. Okay.
Then you down, it means you then take off and vice versa.
It goes by whoever is chayav based on your day, and you have to give it that day. Do you think so? Okay, I don't know. I'm not familiar. And we just finished reading about drinking adelayada. So I want to just reiterate, the vast majority of Rishonim, the pe'echad, such as the Beis Yosef, quoting Orach Chaim, and pretty much most Rishonim, the Rambam, Ran, and others are going to say, Ein lecha avera gedola yeter mizo, is to get drunk, and it's an Isser Gomer. So I'm just pointing out to you what the most of the Rishonim would say. Okay, but yes, there are opinions. They say drink more than you're used to. Okay, fine. Gimel. Omer al Hanissim b'birkas hamazon b'birkas haaretz. So we all know we say al Hanissim also during whenever you bench, night or day, right? In the bracha of Nodelecha. Ve'im hitchil surato bayom. Umashcha ad alayla, Omer al Hanissim. So let's say you start your Suda in the afternoon and you continue until the night. Now Purim is already over and then you're benching. You still say al Hanissim. Then the batar tchilas seuda azlinan, because you go after the beginning of the seuda, where you start having your bread. V'yesh misha omer she'en la'omro. And there is an opinion that says not to, because when you're saying it, it's no longer Purim. V'nohagim kisvar rishona. And the minhag is that you still say al Hanissim, even if you finished your meal afterwards. Many point out if it's if you're having your meal on Friday and it goes into Shabbos, so that's a that's a machlokas what to do. So some Mishnah Burim also says if you did it, then he says you can't say both. It's a Tarte de Sartre is the expression, right? It's a stira. You can't do both. It's not Purim and Shabbos on the same day. So then he actually prefers Shabbos. Different opinions on what to do with it. So, anyways, all the poskim, including the Mishnah Berurah, says just avoid it. If you're having your Suda on Friday, just bench beforehand, before Shabbos starts. Obviously, I believe it's the same three machloket by Rosh Chodesh. So, okay. Now, what happens? But most poskim, including Magen Avraham, Chazon Ovadia, say, if after Purim your meal is going on and you davened Maariv before you benched, so then most poskim, and they say, Safek Brachos Hakal, do not say Al Hanissim in your benching, if you're benching after you daven Maariv. Because by davening Maariv, what? It's not an extra bracha. Where's the bracha? Okay, you're right. More of a hefsek issue. Okay, well taken. Okay, but they say better not to say. So, and if you said it, it wouldn't wouldn't ruin your benching. Okay, very good. I don't know. Good. Okay, and if you forget it altogether, so everyone says also, almost everyone says, there actually happens to be a machlokas. If you should repeat benching or not for the Sudas Purim, at least one of the Sudas on the day of Purim, it's a machlokas it's a real machlokas achronim, if you should repeat benching altogether because you skipped al Hanissim, because some hold that you need to have bread. Right? Some say you do, some say you don't. And I believe all poskim l'maisa would say not to repeat, either because many of us say you don't have to hold, many say you don't have to have bread, and even if you do, on that one we would say that's more appropriate to say Safek Brachos Ahakam. Point well taken. Okay. Okay, I think that leads us to Dalit. Yeah, I don't think you have to. Dalit. Okay. Someone says eat again. If it's not an achila gasa, so then yeah, right. It doesn't really help anyway. Exactly. There's no chiyuv to say al Hanissim by in its own right. Right. So it wouldn't help. Dalit. Chayav lishloach lechavero shtei manos basar o shel mine ochlim shenamar umishloach manot ish lere'eu. So we know there's a chiyuv to give. So this is what we call mishloach manos. We give two items of basar, of real food, or any kind of food, and that's the pasuk we just read. Shtei matanot leish echad, and you're supposed to give two items to one person. All right, just to point out that for mishalach manos, giving to your friends, you give one, and matanas avyonim you give to two people, because matanas avyonim is, what we mentioned before, is more important.
It says avyonim as opposed to ish l're'eh.
Right. So So it's because of the technical reason is based on, we see that in the pasuk. Why is it written like that? Okay, but the technical reason is very good. L're'eo is one, and levyonim is to two. Very good. Okay. Let's see. What's the reasoning for giving mishalach manos? So one famous reason is given. It's written by Shlomo Alkabetz, laharbot ahava v'reos v'shalom, to make friendships and peace between us. The Chuma Sedeshin writes, it's in order to give food to the poor people, because some of us, it's a way are going to be embarrassed to ask, and if you know about them, you should give them, and this way they'll have food to eat at their Seudas Purim. So that's the less common reason, but it is a reason given, and perhaps that'll make a difference, a nafkamina, if the food, if they're going to be able to eat it before their seuda or not. If you give it to them a minute before Purim is over, or you give it to them earlier during the day. Again, that's his reasoning. It doesn't mean that he holds that's it's me'akev or not. I'm not sure. Didn't see it inside, but Okay, Lamaisa, we don't paskin that it must be done earlier as long as they get it during the day. But that's okay. Something to think about. Okay, what else do we want to point out? Let's keep reading. V'im ein lo machlif im chavero. Im ein lo, you don't have what to give, right? You're poor. So then what you do is you find a friend and you trade. You give something to him and he'll give something to you, and this way you each have something to eat that day. Right? You might only have one piece of bread and you don't have to give it away, your last piece. Right? Okay, machlif im chav. Zeh shaleach lazeh sudato, v'zeh shaleach lazeh sudato. Each one gives each other their suda. They make a trade, so they're giving to each other, and they didn't lose, and they still have what to eat. Kedei lekayim umishloach manot ish lere'eo, and this way they're able to mekayim that you are giving to your friend. Haga v'yesh lishloach manot bayom v'lo balayla, and the mitzvah must be done accomplished during the day. If you do it at night, you're not yotze. V'im shaleach manot l'reo, v'hu'enu rotze l'kavlam. You give him a gift, but he doesn't take it. O mochelo, and he says, it's okay. You don't need to give me. I forgive you. Yatza, you still yotze because you did your part, and you tried to give it. You brought it to him, and he didn't take it. That's his problem. Pri Chadash and others say actually you're not yotze. So it's recommended, if that's the one person you chose to give to, find someone else to give it to. Okay, let's see what else. V'isha chayevet b'matanas avyoni v'mishloach hamanot ki-ish. No difference, man and women are both chayev. The Magen Avraham says we see they're chayev, and that is the halacha, but he says we see people are not nizar in this. That some, I don't know, in his he sees that it's the women weren't giving in his time. So he says maybe it's only a chiyuv by a widow to give, but Lamaisi he says everyone should give and have it in mind. But it could be they were yotze by the man giving to multiple people. It's automatic assumed that the man is giving it one for him and one for his wife, and everyone is yotze that way. Okay, right. Of course, they're chayav. They're also be'oto anes, they were obviously very involved in the miracle, just like everybody else, if not more. And of course, they must be happy on the day of Purim itself. V'isha tishlach le'isha, v'ish le'ish. And a woman should give to a woman, and a man to a man, and that's what's appropriate. Darkei tznius. Aval lo behefech, but it should not be done the opposite way. Right, man to a woman, right, vice versa. Shelo yavo ish lishloach le'almana v'yavo lidei safek kiddushin, and also just avoids issues of perhaps it's kiddushin or you're giving presents to show that you were just mekadesh, any kind of a chashash. Also the tznius issue itself, but also to avoid safek kiddushin issues. Aval b'manatanas le'evyonim ein lachosh. When you're giving cash for matanas evyonim, we don't worry about this. Okay. Let's see. Anything interesting you want to mention?
Giving mishloach manos to an ani in order to cover up their busha, you got a problem.
Yeah. So one to one, one to another. Or get a gabbai involved.
What happens if you're makbid and you make sure she's an Aisha Sish? So that's okay then.
Yeah,
What do you mean? No, you're not supposed to.
We said the whole reason is because she's an almana.
Yeah, okay.
But so make sure
but
she's an
maybe
Aisha Sish.
you'll come to it,
That doesn't.
I don't know. Okay. Let's see. A couple interesting things that come up with Mishloach Manos. Do you have to give it with a shaliach? So there's a famous binyan Sion that you need to use a shaliach. That's the lashon of Mishloach. But most poskim say that it's lav dafka. You do not need to use. You do not need to use a shaliach. That's also brought down in Orach Chaim and others. But it's good to be mekayim this at least with one of them. Okay, must be done with food. It can't be done with this for sure. Everyone says can't be done with begadim, clothing, things like that. You could accomplish it with drinks that you are able to. I've heard people say something about two brachos. I have not seen anyone even mention that as written as a chumrah. Certainly, the two manos could be from the same category of brachos. They could both be shahakol or whatever.
You're selling halal, it could be two pieces of meat.
Right, it could be two pieces of meat, exactly. So of course that is the halacha. There's a machloket if it needs to be cooked or not. You can't give a live chicken, that everyone agrees. There's a machloket poskim, could you give a raw piece of chicken or a cooked piece of chicken? So you should try and do biyotze, according to both shitas, of course, at least for one of them. And but that's a real machlokas. As far as someone asked the son of Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rav Gilman told me he asked the son, Yaakov Arabach, who wrote most of the Mincha Shlomo, and he asked him, can you give him a mana chama? Like mana chama. How do you say that in English? As dry as soup that you have to add hot water to.
You call mana chama, it's not hot yet?
It's not. So you have to add hot water to it. It's basically ready, and it's somewhat chashuv, and all you have to do is pour in hot water. So he says, for sure you yotze.
Wow.
Not sure, I'm assuming he meant according to Boshitas, because technically it's cooked and ready. All you have to do is just add some hot water. I mean,
So anything that you would microwave would also be
right. I mean, if it's raw, I think it would be a machloket.
not raw.
But if it's cooked and cold and you need to eat it hot, I think everybody would say that's okay. Right? Some people won't eat cold chicken. They need it to be hot. But there's no chiyuv to bring it hot. Okay. Let's see. So when you give a gift, you should have obviously no expectations. Hakparas, expect to have it. Someone is going to give you back. No tanayim. When you give it, it's a full gift. Leaving it by the door. So that is a real problem. And since if they don't get it during Purim, you're probably not Yotzei at all, because there's no kinyan whatsoever. Kinyan chatzar needs to be, if you put it in their property, then maybe you're Yotzei, especially if you call them up, but that you might be, probably. But your front door, anyone can just walk up and take it, so it's probably, there's no kinyan there, and you're not Yotzei. Okay, we mentioned the issue of a minute before Shkia, if you're Yotzei or not. There is somewhere a machmer, in particular, I think it's the Ben Ish Chai and some more Sephardic poskim, that it should be given in two separate kelim or baskets or bags. But the halacha, basically everyone says there's no such halacha, and you don't need to give it into two separate, or even it could be loose, it doesn't matter. The Rishonim will say, even if you give a big portion of something, that counts as two. So if you're going to give a whole chicken, then already that counts as two. It's not that there's a halacha so much of two separate items per se if you're giving an extra large chashuv amount. Okay.
One whole chicken would count as
You don't have to first cut it up into pieces necessarily either, but I don't think so. Okay, if you have it tavshil, it's brought down of two different items. Poskim do say that's okay. Like fish and eggs or whatever you're going to make if it's two separate things. Pita with a thin layer of hummus, we all agree probably will not make you yotzei, two items. Also because many point out, again it's not 100% clear, but many point out it must be at least somewhat chashuv. If you give somebody a raisin, it's very questionable if you're a yotzei at all. It needs to be something that...
filled with falafel balls and salad.
Oh, for sure. I think you would be.
Just that would be...
Yeah, it's okay if it's mixed. Yeah, for sure. If you bring a falafel, pita with falafel, then that's already enough. But the layer of hummus is not chashuv, but if you bring them a whole container of hummus, that is chashuv. Ice cream on a cone would be chashuv. A box of raisins for sure is okay. So if you just give one single raisin and one strand of a celery, what's that going to do? Okay, I think that mostly covers that up, and of course you can pick it up yourself. There's no halachos of how you hand it to each other. Okay, there really aren't that many halachos about it. It's more things that are thought about later on in Achronim. Okay. If it's a suffix it's a city, that's a suffix. If it's the 14th or the 15th. So the Bir Halacha brings the Pri Chada. She says you only have to bring it on the 14th because that's the Purim, Larov Ha'olam. We mentioned, right, similar by reading that you could be Yotzei that way as well. But some say it's better that you should bring it both days. You should go Mishlach Manos both days if you live in a city that's a suffix. Okay, we finished? Yeah. Taf Resh Tzadivav. Okay, we'll get through at least a portion of it. Aleph. Purim mutar ba'asiyat melacha. So, according to the Ikar Halacha, you are allowed to do malacha. You're allowed to work. You are allowed to do the lamatet malachos. But if you see the Gemara in Megillah, you see the first, originally the Megillah calls it Yemei Mishte v'Simcha v'Yom Tov. And then later on, it talks about the holiday and leaves out the word Yom Tov. So you see from the Gemara, and the Gemara discusses it. It's that initially, Chazal apparently, they actually were koveya, it should be just like a Yom Tov. I don't know if it was Yom Tov Mamish, probably like Chol HaMoed, but it didn't stick, didn't take. So by the next year, people were treating it like a day of Chol, and that is the halacha. However, that is really kind of what Chazal wanted us to do, and therefore, it depends on your minhag. Ubemakom shenagu shelo la'asot ein osim. So there are communities that accepted upon themselves mitam minhag not to do any malacha, and we're talking about, let's say, planting. You want to go to your garden and plant. So these things like that, building. Some you want to do some sewing. So all these things, according to the original takana, is Esed Rabbanan, or Midivrei Kabbalah even. However, again, didn't stick. So nowadays, if that's the minhag, then it is Aser Mita'am minhag. V'ha'idna nagu b'chol makom shelo la'asot. And the minhag nowadays is not to do malacha. V'ha'ose eino roeh siman bracha me'ota melacha le'olam. And a person who does this does not receive any bracha from his work. Like, don't expect if you plant something that it's going to grow or grow better than it would have if you would have waited a day. And we're not saying you're going to lose, Mishnah Berurah points out, but it's not going to curse and ruin all your other plants. But it is a siman bracha for that, what you did. They do point out that you are allowed to to buy and sell though. Buying and selling, that makes people happy, and that wasn't part of the minhag that was, I'm not sure, maybe even the original din, but certainly mitam minhag, there's no isser in buying and selling. But obviously, many point out it's better not to be busy buying and selling on the day of Purim and wasting away your day on doing business. Unless, of course, it's a hefsed gadol or a huge revach, whatever, but generally, it's not recommended.
So it's less chamor than chol hamoed.
For sure, it's not the same level. Right, it's not. But certainly, whatever is mutar on Chol HaMoed, for sure, is mutar on Purim. So you can. So whatever the minhag is. Now it's a little bit unclear what the minhag is. I haven't heard of people saying it's usher to water your plants. So mistama, it's okay, and we're talking about filling your day with sowing and planting. I don't know, for business or I don't know. It's a good question. I don't have a final. I don't know 100%, but I have not heard of anyone being machmir on watering. Good question. Okay, and if you don't have what to eat, obviously for you it's simcha, and regardless, it's for sure it's mutter. It's the same as chol hamoed. Okay, let's go on. Ella, however, what is mutter? Binyan shel simcha, if you're making a building for a chasim v'kala, you're building a chuppah, you're building something for their first home before they walk in. As long as it's l'shem the nesuin, it has to be related to the simcha. You go on base chasnas livno, right? You're building your house for your son with the chuppah inside. Oh, avarnaki shel melachim. You're building some kind of a tree canopy with shade flowers because it's for simcha. They use it for parties, and they're going to be so anything that's associated with building for parties. That's what is mutter.
Mishmur says
Haga?
not eating. It's actually planting an orchard.
Right. Even if they're not going to use it on that Purim, it seems like,
Right.
as long as the building itself is l'shem a simcha purpose. Haga u'mutter lasa kol malachat mitzvah, and any kind of malachat mitzvah, kegon lichto piske halachos. That's for sure mutter. V'chein mutter lasos afilu malachos gemuras hatzorach Purim. Anything that's hatzorach your simcha, anything that's hatzorach the day, for sure all that is 100% mutter, right? Whatever was mutter for Chol HaMoed is for sure mutter. It's a little questionable what's Lamaisa Aser, but probably. Yeah, okay, we'll leave it like that. Whatever the minhag is.